What aired on SportsCenter tonight got Knicks fans buzzing, because it's clear now the New York Knicks are making some major internal shifts, particularly when it comes to how the team is going to operate this season. The broadcast broke down some very real signs that a philosophical change is on the horizon, especially with how the rotations are about to look under head coach Mike Brown. And Knicks fans? They've been waiting for something like this. A fresh identity, a more modern system, something that reflects the personnel the Knicks actually have, not just a stubborn system. So here's what was said on the program, and let's break it down. First off, the big headline: New York is poised to shift from a defensive-minded, grinded-out approach to a much faster, more offensive-driven style of play. And that shift begins at the top, with Mike Brown taking over for Tom Thibodeau. For the first time in years, it seems like the Knicks are going to start using their bench consistently, which was not the case under Thibs. His rotations were tight, often to a fault, and the pace? It was slow, methodical, painfully so, especially when your two most dynamic offensive weapons are Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Under Mike Brown, that's changing. Expect a quicker tempo, more ball movement, more pace and space. The Knicks are finally leaning into what they do best, not just sticking to what's safe. The report went on to highlight how this approach better fits the current makeup of the roster. Offensively, this team has legitimate firepower. Brunson, Towns, Bridges, Anunoby, all proven scorers in different ways. But defensively? Not everyone is a lockdown presence, so building an identity around offense and flexibility makes a ton of sense. And that brings us to what was arguably the most interesting part of the SportsCenter segment: the question of the starting lineup. According to insider Christian Winfield, there's been internal discussion about sticking with the current core of starters, and Ian Begley backed that up, noting there's support within the organization to keep things intact. You might remember how the Knicks nearly pulled off a comeback against the Pacers in the playoffs, and part of that was Josh Hart entering the starting five in place of Mitchell Robinson. That shift gave the Knicks more perimeter defense and better spacing. But here's where it gets tricky. With Mitchell Robinson healthy and Towns locked into a massive contract, over $53 million for 2025 to 26, it's difficult to imagine a world where either of those two comes off the bench. Bridges and Anunoby are also making significant money, and they're vital to the wing rotation. So the big debate becomes, who starts, who sits? Robinson came off the bench late last year while recovering from injury and still made an impact. But if he's 100% healthy, does Mike Brown insert him back into the starting five? If not, and he stays in a reserve role, then the most likely candidate to slide in would be Josh Hart. The staff reportedly likes the idea, but only if Hart's three-point shot is falling. Last regular season, he shot just 33.3% from deep. However, over his last two playoff runs with the Knicks, he's hit 37% from beyond the arc, which is more than serviceable. Essentially, you're looking at two possible outcomes. Either Robinson starts, and you pair two 7-footers together in the front court, or Hart gets the nod, and you spread the floor around town. Both setups have their pros and cons. The report continued by exploring possible minute distribution and how the Knicks could stagger their bigs. Even if Robinson doesn't start, he can still play heavy minutes. That allows players like Ariel Hukporti to get some time, especially as he develops. Remember, Hukporti isn't your typical rookie anymore. He's coming into this season a bit more mature and polished, and the Knicks want to see what they have in him. And don't forget Gershon Yabusele. The versatile forward brings a different look. He can play the 4, switch onto smaller players, and even spend time at the 5 in small ball lineups. That added flexibility gives Mike Brown options that simply didn't exist under Thibodeau. Winfield also emphasized how important that up-tempo approach is going to be for some of these younger guys. Hukporti, for instance, is a natural rim runner. He's fast, athletic, and a surprisingly good high-post passer, drawing early comparisons to Isaiah Hartenstein in terms of style and decision-making. That makes him a great fit for Brown's system, but at the end of the day, the anchor in the middle might still be Mitchell Robinson. The numbers don't lie. He averaged 7 rebounds, 5 points per game in last year's playoffs, while shooting a ridiculous 61% from the field. And he was still grabbing nearly 4 offensive boards per game, which is elite. The shot blocking wasn't quite at full strength post-injury, but that will likely return with rhythm and health. Robinson still does all the little things that don't show up in the box score: sealing defenders, resetting possessions, protecting the paint, all of it. So while it's not a certainty who gets the nod to start at center, one thing is clear: the Knicks have real depth, real versatility, and a real identity forming under Mike Brown. And it's about time. What came next on tonight's SportsCenter broadcast really drove the point home. This wasn't just about rotations or fit. It was about identity, continuity, and what one player has come to mean to an entire organization. That player is Mitchell Robinson. And the message from the panel was loud and clear. He's not just an energy big or a backup center. He's the heart of a roster that's undergone years of change. And yet, somehow, he's still here. Still vital. Still defining what it means to wear that Knicks jersey. They walked through the history, and it's remarkable. Mitchell Robinson, who first joined the Knicks during the Porzingis era, is still around. Yes, Kristaps was on the team when Mitch got drafted, even though the two never shared the court. The fact that Robinson's tenure stretches that far back tells you everything about his durability and his place in the franchise. He's seen it all: the old front office, multiple head coaches, draft busts, playoff droughts, and now, finally, the rise of a real contender. Through it all, Mitch has remained a cornerstone. And it's not by accident. It's because what he brings to the table still matters just as much today as it did when he entered the league. Actually, maybe even more. He's still one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. He still protects the rim. He still finishes at a high clip. He still brings that vertical threat that forces defenses to stay honest. And most of all, he doesn't try to be something he's not. He understands his role better than most players in the league, and he thrives in it. That's rare, and it's valuable. The SportsCenter team backed it up with numbers, specifically the 4-man lineup data from last season's playoffs. When Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns shared the floor, the Knicks were dominant. The combination of Anunoby, Towns, Mitch, and Deuce McBride delivered a staggering net rating of nearly plus 58. Even when you swap OG out for Josh Hart, the numbers stayed elite at plus 36, and it didn't stop there. Bridges, Towns, Robinson, and McBride were up around plus 31. Even lesser-used groupings like Payne, Anunoby, Towns, and Mitch came in above plus 13. And the wildest part? Jalen Brunson wasn't even in those lineups. That tells you how impactful Mitch and Towns were together. Those groups worked, and they worked consistently. And this year, the Knicks have upgraded their guard depth. They've moved on from Cameron Payne. That means those lineups, already dominant, could be even better moving forward. That's why, as they said on air, Robinson isn't just a useful piece. He's essential. The rebounding, the defense, the verticality, the screen setting, the toughness. That stuff doesn't show up in highlight reels, but it wins game. He's elite at what he does. And in a league where teams are constantly looking for the next shiny thing, there's something to be said for the guy who just keeps showing up and doing his job at a high level. But there's also a tactical angle to all of this, because starting Mitchell Robinson gives Towns freedom. Freedom to float out to the perimeter, where he's most dangerous offensively. When Robinson occupies defenders in the paint, opposing centers can't just camp out and double Towns. They have to account for Mitch. And that changes the spacing. It opens up the offense. It forces teams to make choices. And that's what they struggled to do last season when Josh Hart was starting at the 4. The show broke it down. Hart was great during the regular season. He gave them 13.6 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, over 50% from the field. He brought energy and toughness. But in the playoffs, teams adjusted. Big men started guarding him. They dared him to shoot. They backed off, crowded Towns, clogged the paint, and it worked. Hart didn't shoot enough threes to make them pay, and suddenly, the offense slowed down. Spacing shrank. Driving lanes vanished. And it impacted everyone, especially Brunson and Towns. With Mitch, that dynamic shifts. He doesn't space the floor horizontally, but he does vertically. He stays in that dunker spot. He makes you guard him, and if you don't, he'll grab every offensive rebound and make you regret it. That creates room for Town. It gives Brunson angles to drive. It keeps the defense honest, and it leads to better rhythm and better shots. The Sports Center panel also raised an interesting possibility, something that would have been laughed off just a season ago: a starting backcourt of Jalen Brunson and Deuce McBride. Now sure, it's small, but Deuce has proven he belongs. The man has become one of the most disruptive perimeter defenders in the league. And he's a knockdown shooter now, too. He hit 37% from deep in the regular season, same number in the playoffs. He's not a liability anymore, he's a weapon. When he shared the floor with Brunson last season, the results were strong. Nearly 700 minutes together during the regular season, net rating of plus 6.9. In the postseason, pi 9.0 in just under 200 minutes. That's not just decent, that's playoff-winning production. So while size will always be a question, especially in a league with bigger backcourts, the skill set is real. Two guards who can shoot, pass, and defend. That works when you surround them with versatile wings and dominant bigs like Mitch and Towns. What SportsCenter highlighted tonight was this: the Knicks aren't locked into any one identity. With Mike Brown now running the show, they're being creative. They're using data, they're testing combinations, and for the first time in a long time, New York has real flexibility. They can play big, they can go small, they can run, they can defend. And if Mitch is healthy, that opens the door for everything else to fall into place. This isn't the same old Knicks team. They're deeper, they're smarter, they're tougher. And with Robinson in the lineup, the foundation is as solid as it's been in years. What comes next is up to them. But after what we saw laid out tonight, one thing is clear: this team is ready to make noise, and fans have every reason to believe it. What really stood out during the next segment of tonight's SportsCenter was how the conversation evolved beyond just the core group of starters. The panel shifted the focus to the broader picture, specifically how Mike Brown might approach his backcourt options heading into the season. And one name that kept coming up again and again was Deuce McBride. The numbers were brought up right away. Last season, when Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and McBride shared the floor, the Knicks had a net rating of 113.4 across nearly 300 minutes. And in the playoffs, while the trio didn't maintain the same dominance, they still held their own and played to a near-even mark. That's a positive indicator in a postseason setting, especially considering how new some of those lineups were. But what makes the Brunson-McBride pairing so intriguing, and what the show emphasized, is the natural chemistry between the two. Brunson has always thrived playing next to other guards who can knock down shots and take some of the defensive pressure off. McBride does exactly that. He defends the point of attack better than arguably anyone else on the roster, and has improved tremendously as a shooter. Last season, he averaged 9.5 points per game with 3 assists, 5 rebounds, a steal per night, while shooting 37% from deep and 40% from the field overall. That's the type of production you can build with. He doesn't need to dominate the ball. He plays within the system, and he makes smart reads. But this wasn't just about stats. The panel on SportsCenter reminded viewers that Mike Brown is no stranger to starting smaller lineups. During his time in Sacramento, the Kings were known for playing undersized. Their starting five often featured De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk in the backcourt, with Harrison Barnes at the wing, and a front court of Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis. That wasn't a traditional physically imposing group, yet it was effective. And that's because Brown prioritized pace, spacing, and ball movement over sheer size. The message was clear: Mike Brown isn't going to hesitate to go small if it fits the vision. After all, this is the same coach who sat on the Warriors bench during their title runs. He understands how modern basketball works, and if that means running out a Brunson-McBride starting duo, he'll do it. And McBride's playoff performance last season gave plenty of reason to believe he could handle the role. He averaged 6 points per game in the postseason, shooting 37% from three, nearly all of his attempts coming from deep. His shot profile was consistent, his defensive intensity remained high, and he proved he could contribute on that big stage. That's what matters most. Still, the discussion didn't stop there. One other name came up during the show, someone who might be flying under the radar for now, but could soon become a serious rotation factor: Pacome Dadier. The 6'7" French wing was the Knicks' first-round pick in the 2024 draft, and while his rookie year didn't feature much NBA action, he spent most of it in Westchester with the G League squad. His skill set has the front office excited. Kristen Winfield, featured during the segment, floated a bold idea: throw Dadiet into the fire and see what happens. The argument? He's got the size, he's got the tools, a near 9-foot standing reach, a smooth shooting form, and the instincts of a modern 3-and-D wing. He showed flashes in Summer League, including an 8-for-13 shooting night against Detroit, where he dropped 17 points before a toe sprain sidelined him. Winfield noted that while it's unlikely the Knicks would start him right away, Dadiet adds a different flavor to the rotation and is likely to carve out minutes this year if his development keeps trending upward. The potential is there. He's active on both ends, doesn't shy away from contact, and wants to put the ball on the floor. He might still be raw, but the upside is real. If the Knicks can mold him properly, they might have found a hidden gem late in the first round. And who knows, given the unpredictable nature of an 82-game season, injuries and matchups might force the Knicks to throw him into the fire sooner than expected. If that happens, tonight's discussion suggested he might be more ready than people think. So with all that said, the big question becomes this: who rounds out the starting five? SportsCenter closed the segment by putting the spotlight on that final slot. We know Brunson will be there. We know Towns will be there. OG Anunoby is a lock. Mikal Bridges likely starts as well. But that fifth spot? It's wide open. Could it be Mitchell Robinson anchoring the paint and doing all the dirty work? Maybe it's Josh Hart, who brings energy, rebounding, and versatility even with his spacing concern. Deuce McBride makes a compelling case with his defense and shooting. Gershon Yabusele has been mentioned, especially for his size and mobility. Jordan Clarkson remains an option if the Knicks want scoring punch. And then, of course, there's Dadiet, raw, intriguing, and still unproven, but someone who could be part of something unexpected. That was the note they ended on. The idea that this Knicks team, under Mike Brown, won't be afraid to experiment. The starting five could evolve. Roles may change. Young players might be trusted with bigger responsibilities earlier than usual. And that sense of unpredictability isn't a weakness. It might be one of the team's biggest strengths heading into the season. What's clear is that New York is approaching this campaign with a different mindset. They're leaning into their depth, they're leaning into versatility, and they're trusting that guys like McBride, Robinson, and maybe even Dadiet can help shape the identity of a team that's hungry to break through in the East. And for the Knicks faithful, watching it all unfold live on SportsCenter tonight, that's more than enough reason to be excited about what's coming next.